last moments on Earth. He was abused by robots, programmed with all the wrong information and with all the wrong thoughts. Certainly, these robots didn't appear to have a heart. And I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, this is modern day British policing. This is what we are now left with. They are no longer our friends. They cannot be trusted. And they have now proven this to us, the white indigenous British population in particular, time and time and time again. Henry needed help. Maybe he was beyond help. But someone could have held his hand. Someone could have offered him some love and some comfort. Just to let him know that he wasn't alone and that help was on the way. Instead, these bastards handcuffed him and read him his rights. Quite why is anyone's guess. Clearly, he offered no threat to absolutely anyone. And towards the end of the video, one officer can be heard saying that his pupils were not responsive. Finally, these idiots were getting the message. So let's be clear, these aren't emergency service first responders. These aren't people trying to help you. These are inept, unscrupulous, entitled, politically biased university products that have no place anywhere near a uniform or any position of power. And it's my opinion that all three of these officers simply must be fully and properly investigated, and hopefully some serious, very serious charges will be brought against them, especially that male police officer who sounded bored, uninterested, and he arrived at the scene with all the urgency of turning up to a game of tiddlywinks. Now, my own experience with the police, in many ways, is somewhat similar. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who is a serving police officer. I'll get round to your chat in a minute, guys. I'm going to be inviting you onto the show to let you get it off your chest a little bit later on. But I just want to go through my opening speech here this morning. As I said, my own experience with the police is similar in many ways. They didn't ever care about justice when I was in trouble and needed help from the police. Most of them just want to get off work as early as they possibly can. You know, they don't care about guilt and innocence. They allow the jury to decide that. The truth is, over the years, they've employed hateful people with hateful, hard left attitudes, and the British public have simply had enough. And my friend who's a police officer, I apologised to him yesterday because sometimes I take my anger out with the police on him, and he's absolutely just a lovely family man. And I felt bad. He's not the right person to be taking my anger out on. But I've been scarred by the police. 2011 is the first time that I ever came across them after being robbed, beaten, abused, attacked. On 3 occasions between 2011 and 2014. And for anyone that's been watching me long enough, you will know that it wasn't the robbers, it wasn't those that attacked me physically, it wasn't those that robbed me, it wasn't those that stole from me that left me traumatised, it was the police that left me traumatised. Because you expect support, you expect care. With any luck, you expect justice. What you don't expect is to be treated like a criminal yourself because you're an easy target. And I suggest that those inept officers turned up at that house that you'll see in the video. And Henry, poor Henry, was the low-hanging fruit, wasn't he? He was the one that was clearly incapacitated. He was the one that clearly offered no threat. He was the one that was in trouble, and they chose to pick on him and handcuff Henry. I call cowards. And I've got to tell you, everyone, I've said this before, but this time I mean it. I am done with the police. Done. I no longer support them. I no longer care about them. I no longer have any respect for them. And I care now as much about their safety as that police officer, Joe Henry. And it's all their own fault. I tell you, watching that video this morning was really, really, really hard. Good morning, all. I'm aware that last night there were one or two detractors in the comment section. I'm not going to highlight them or what they were saying, but if they're back today at all, the mods will deal with them very swiftly. Please do not show them any response. Morpheus says, I hope the parents sue the police. I don't think suing the police is anywhere near enough, Morpheus. Anywhere near enough. We're going to watch that video this morning, but if you've already seen it, you may not want to watch it a second time. If you haven't seen it, I've got to warn you, it's not pretty. Good morning, Jenny. First of all, let's have a little look at Nigel Farage's response this morning. Certainly better than the response from Keir Starmer last night. Let's have a little look at what Nigel Farage had to say earlier on this morning.
Good morning. It's a moment to take a long, hard look at ourselves as a country and what we've become. The murder of 18-year-old student Henry Novak was bad enough of itself, but compounded in the most extraordinary way by the behaviour of the police officers. Many of us have asked for the footage to be released, and finally, last night it was. Let me show you just 30 seconds of what happened on that fateful evening in Southampton.
With more categories on Vinted, you can sell the things that take up space. Don't use it, sell it.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we?
I was in bed asleep. Whenever you find me up there, someone's attacking me.
Grab his other arm. What's happened to you, alright? Been stabbed. You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Just think of it. An 18-year-old lad, a student, been out with some friends for the evening, on the way home, and victim of a sustained attack. Stabbed several times, chased down the street. Stabbed seriously 5 times. And what happens? Well, the assailant's brother rings the police to say, we've just been racially attacked and abused by a white guy. The sirens blare, they arrive. Young Henry must have thought that at last help was at hand, but far, far from it. The police act from the beginning to the end, and the end when he dies, lying on a pavement, having been stabbed in handcuffs. The last thing he heard on this earth was him being read his rights by the police. He was actually treated in a way that meant an accusation of a racial slur was treated more seriously than an act of murder. What did he say? I can't breathe. Familiar words? Remember career criminal George Floyd, who died in appalling circumstances in Midwest America a few years ago. Remember the reaction to that and the way the police behaved. Within a few days, Keir Starmer was taking the knee. Black Lives Matter exploded all over the country. Churchill's statue was defaced. The cenotaph was vandalised. And yet, what has the public reaction been from our leaders and politicians? And indeed, to be frank, much of the media to this? Silence. Absolute silence. Proof, if ever there was any, that we're living in a two-tier culture in this country where the rights and privileges of white people matter less than those of ethnic minorities. Now, what has happened over the last few decades is, without anybody being asked, without anybody ever voting for it, we've been subjected to mass immigration on a scale that is truly unbelievable. At least 10 million new people have come to Britain in the last 20 years. And let's be clear, many of them are great people who work hard, have integrated and made their lives here. But far too many that have come have refused to integrate, are leading parallel lives and leaving many of our cities almost culturally unrecognisable from what they've always been. But to stop any criticism of this, we've brought in hate speech laws. We've brought in a DEI agenda. We've brought in what is called positive discrimination in favour of ethnic minorities over those of white people whose families have lived in Britain in many cases for centuries. That is the mess that we've got into. And that is why, in some ways, what happened, and despite the appalling behaviour of those police officers, but in some ways, what happened on that night in Southampton perhaps shouldn't be a surprise in two-tier Britain. Alison Pearson, journalist on the Daily Telegraph, received yesterday an email from an experienced, long-serving Hampshire police officer. In it, he makes perfectly clear that the police are told that they must respond to situations in different ways according to the ethnicity of those involved in the crime or potential crime. He also describes how a DEI agenda has gone so far through the police that people now get promoted, not on the basis of merit, not on the basis of ability, but on the basis of what their racial or religious origin is. That has led to a decline in policing standards. But think of this. Much as we may condemn the two police officers involved here, think of this. The biggest fear a police officer now has going about his or her duty on the street is the fear of being reported for having acted in a way that was racially biased. That fear, now greater than dealing with a dying man living on the ground. Henry's family have responded to this in just the most extraordinarily dignified way. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage. This is wrong. All the values and standards of living in a free country where everybody is judged equally before the law have been trashed and thrown away. And there are one or two things that need to happen very quickly. The first is that the police complaints operation, the IOPC, needs to get to the bottom of this and produce a report very, very quickly. Secondly, even through to sentencing, the sentence given was actually lower than the recommended minimum for a sustained, aggressive, murderous assault. And I'll be writing today to the Attorney General asking him to review the sentence. But the most important thing that needs to change, that has to change, if our society is not to be ripped apart, where communities start to distrust each other and deeply distrust the police and all the other institutions of this country, is we need a change in culture. Enough of anti-white prejudice. A promotion of the idea that white lives matter just as much as black lives. An end to DEI and positive discrimination, but a country that treats everybody equally and fairly before the law. This is serious. This is urgent. I fear for where our society will be in a few short years if we don't grip this and do it very, very quickly.